come to this happy place, welcome.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por
We
favor,
invite you with
manténganse
your
alejados de
dares
las
to
puertas.
visit tonight's episode in Vista,
In
this
discreet
elevated travel.
and doorless chambers.
Hello and welcome to Miles from Main Street, your Far From Disney podcast. My name is Mikhailo,
And I'm Brian,
and we're here to talk about Disney World,
but especially coping away from Disney.
which we know a lot about being from the Midwest. Today, we're going to talk about Animal Kingdom, my favorite park. This is actually not my favorite park, but it has probably my favorite ride in this park, that being Expedition Everest. But today we're going to be going over planning tips, reviewing, coping, and a little history while we're at it. Brian, do you want to go over our first planning tip for him?
Yeah, so you'll hear from a lot of people that Animal Kingdom is the hottest park. So you're going to want to spend time finding a way to get out of the heat. Plan to take a break during the day, and also plan your day so you're not running crisscross across the park. That's going to be a lot of miles, a lot of the heat. So if you can kind of make that circle around the park, you're going to do a lot better.
So when you say circle around the park, do you mean, I know for myself, I usually go right when you go through the little trails in the front there. I usually go right and I hit Dinoland USA first. And so are we talking about like going in a circle around all of that stuff?
Yeah, a circle, my thought is the circle around the Tree of Life, because that's how the park is kind of built. The tree is the center, and you've got the path going around it. So if you can find a way to go around the park instead of crisscrossing, you don't want to head to Pandora and then go over to Dino Land and then head over to a safari to go back over to Everest. You want to try to go around and hit all the things as you can as you go around the park.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we could consider Animal Kingdom to be a hub and spokes park. Is that correct?
A little bit. You've got water in the middle that kind of makes that difficult. So you do have a couple of bridges, but it's not quite a hub and spoke like the Magic Kingdom is.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Brian. My next tip, which kind of can go along with doing a circle and trying to stay out of the heat, is take your time while you're walking around the park. One of my favorite things to do is walk through the Maharaja Jungle Trek, and I think there's another one.
Gorilla Falls.
Gorilla Falls.
Yeah.
These jungle treks are so cool, and it's basically people like to say that Animal Kingdom is a zoo, but it's really not a zoo. It's a theme park that incorporates animals. But all of these sections that I'm talking about kind of bring out that zoo feeling when you're in there. But there are some really cool areas to walk through. Like you can walk through this entire room that's just bats, and they're all free to fly around, which might freak some people out. It freaks a lot of people out. But I just think that's so cool that you can just like walk in there and be in this room full of bats. They have tigers. They have a whole area that you can go and check out tigers. And that's kind of like what the whole park is about. It's about these animals and conservation and helping these animals. Another fun one that people don't necessarily think about all the time is Rafiki's Planet Watch. And you walk into this area and you go on this bus type thing, and it kind of takes you to this like oasis type place. Not really an oasis, but it's this area where they do all of the the tests and the procedures on the animals and everything, and you get to go in there and see what they're doing and everything. And I thought that was really cool too, because it's kind of like what the park was meant for. And it's these little things that people tend to. I said it right away when I said my favorite ride's Everest. And a lot of the times when I go to this park, I'm running straight to Everest because it's my favorite ride. But these little things in the park that's what brings the charm out of the park. It's very cool to walk through these things, and it's kind of brings the whole park together rather than just being a whole bunch of lands with rides and a theme. It actually gives the park a lot more meaning than just a theme park.
Yeah, and that tree has trails around it as well. And it allows you to get up close and personal to that tree and see those carvings. And if you go on those trails, you're going to see more carvings than you would if you're just walking around the park and looking at the tree as you see it. There's so many more carvings that you can see. And there's also some animals along those little trails too. So one of them is going when you go to the show for It's Tough to Be a Bug, you'll see some there. But there's another one, Tree of Life Discovery Trails, I think they're called. And there's otters back in there and some birds and yeah, so there's a lot to find. It's much more of a discovery park than an entertainment. I don't know. I don't want to say it's not an entertainment park, but it really encourages you to discover what they have, look and find, and really kind of changes the whole theme park idea.
Disney's been pretty good with edutainment, and Epcot is like the flagship of edutainment because that's like what Epcot was made for when it first came out. But Animal Kingdom has that element too, where it's kind of like edutainment, where when you go on these trails and stuff like that, it also kind of provides information about the animals that are there, and kind of the same way a zoo does, which is why so many people equate it to being a zoo. But it's much more than that.
They have a lot of cast members out there to help you. If you have questions, you can ask questions. They'll offer information about the animals you're looking at, which you don't get that a lot in zoos. So
Definitely, yeah. Cool. So those are our planning tips for you guys, some little nuggets for you. Next, we're going to go into reviewing. Brian is going to review Yak and Yeti. I have never been to Yak and Yeti. I hear great things about Yak and Yeti. I've walked into Yak and Yeti. I've just never eaten there. So Brian is going to go ahead and give us a quick review of Yak and Yeti.
yeah, Yak and Yeti was a place that my wife and I were able to get to when we were on a trip by ourselves, and the food was amazing. It has a lot of the flavors from India that you don't get a lot in our own hometowns. Um, so one of the great things about Disney is that they make their food accessible for a lot of people, so that you can go and try something, and it may not be the full bore. Here's the Indian food, but it's still going to be really good. And by us going to Yak and Yeti, that allowed us to then say, wow, this stuff is really good. Let's go try it in our hometown. And we found a place here in Green Bay that is just amazing. And we love going there now. So a lot of these restaurants, I love to go try them at Disney because they're going to be accessible. We had a chicken tikka masala, which was amazing. It's a red sauce with rice and chicken and the naan bread. I'll tell you what, I am a big eater of breads, and naan bread is one of my favorites. Uh, Garlic naan bread is a weakness of mine nowadays, so definitely got to try that. So yeah, the Yak and Yeti, if you can get a chance to go there, definitely do it. They do like a fried rice as well, and a pot sticker type of thing. Um, and that sounds like a Chinese or a Japanese type of thing, but this is Indian, so you got those flavors from India there. And the other nice thing is if you don't want to sit down at a tabled meal, they've got a quick service restaurant right outside Yak and Yeti. That I think it's called Yak and Yeti Local Cafe or something like that. Um, and you can go and get a lot of these types of dishes that Yak and Yeti would serve, but you can get it quick serve and you can get it a little cheaper too. So you can go and try a couple of things there as well. So I've always been about trying new things, and Disney really allows that to happen. So definitely go check out Yak and Yeti.
Yeah, 100%. I've heard great things about Yak and Yeti, and that all just kind of confirms what I've heard before. Um, and I always thought it was cool that you were kind of talking about Disney makes the food accessible, and I always thought that was really cool that they will bring in these people, and they were bringing these flavors, but still kind of not like Americanize them, but kind of make them a little bit more palatable for people. Um, and that makes a lot of sense because you're going to get people from pretty much everywhere going to Disney, so you never really know what kind of palate somebody's actually going to have. So I always think that's really cool. So this next section we're going to go into our coping section. We're kind of going to it's going to be a little different today. We're going to kind of have like a blue sky. We're going to have kind of a blue sky meeting about some things that we would change in Animal Kingdom, and kind of like we're going to be armchair Imagineers for a second and try to think of some new things we can put into Animal Kingdom. Um,
Yeah, one of the things I love about Disney is that they're constantly changing something. So one of the things that I do to get by when I'm talking to somebody is, what could we do with some of these rides that are closed? So looking at Dino Land, we know Primeval World is not going to be back. So we've got some space to fill there. Mikhailo, what are you going to do with that space?
well, Dino Land in general, I could talk about Dino Land for a while, because I love Dino Land, and the ride Dinosaur in the back used to be kind of one of those hidden gems. Um, I used to go to Animal Kingdom all the time and barely ever have to wait for Dinosaur, even in the middle of summer, which is usually when I would go because I was either in school or I was teaching school or I had tours that I was going on. So I've always had to go in the summer. I've never gone to Disney on a downtime because I've just always been forced to go over the summer. But that was always kind of a hidden gem when I would go is that dinosaur ride kind of tucked back. Um, and for me, I would try to. I understand that it's kind of like a carnival, and there's kind of a backstory there about the dig site put up a carnival or something like that. I'm not sure. Brian can go more into the backstory, but I feel like I would want to just completely push all that stuff out. I would just bulldoze the whole carnival atmosphere area, and for me, I think it would be cool to actually turn it into more of like a dig site. It's like something a little bit more not professional, but something a little bit more serious than a carnival. Um, I'm I don't really have like a set idea, just because that whole area there is so big. We could do an. I just love dinosaur. I love the idea of everything that's going on. I love the technology. And it's a pretty serious, I'm doing air quotes again, ride, even though we've got Seeker and all of this other nonsense that happens. But it definitely feels like more of a serious ride. So I feel like that whole area out there could match that. I always feel weird when I go on that ride and then I come out and it's a carnival atmosphere with a Mad Mouse roller coaster in the middle, and I just always thought that it was weird, and so I don't think I've never been on Primeval Whirl, probably for that reason. It's just I've always skipped over all of that stuff because I love Dinosaur, the ride, so much. So probably for me, something that matches that ride, kind of the seriousness of that ride, the seriousness of dinosaurs. So maybe like something like a dig site or something like that would be cool for me. And then maybe a ride that has something to do with either a dig site or something to do with like finding dinosaurs or something like that, even though that's basically what dinosaur is. But yeah, something kind of in that realm, something a little bit more serious is what I would be going towards. Kind of something a little bit more like Pandora, even though honestly, at this point, if they wanted to do something like that, they just bulldoze everything and just turn it into something else. But yeah, that's kind of my beef with that whole area, is that the carnival atmosphere doesn't really match the dinosaur ride itself. And I love that ride so much. I just wish everything else outside of it matched that ride.
I'm buying what you're saying. I totally agree. The carnival is kind of an odd thing. Um, it it's an interesting story, and Chester and Hester decided to create this carnival after they had initially started the area as a dig site.
So is that real names? You're not just like making names up right now?
No, Chester and Hester are the people that started the carnival area.
Nice.
The gift shop kind of in the back past the carnival games. That's Chester and Hester's gift shop.
I don't know any of this, probably because I just block it out of my mind.
Restaurantosaurus, I wouldn't recommend eating there, but the stories that you can pick up inside there are really fun. There's archaeological interns that are living there or had been living there. And there's kind of like side plots about how these interns are selling the fossils. And it's really interesting to kind of put these pieces together as you're going through there. But they've spent a lot of time on this Donald's Dino Bash and trying to fold in how Donald Duck is related to dinosaurs. And so I kind of want to build on that instead of starting from scratch. Let's build on it. So I want to see some sort of, maybe it's one of those Donald Duck and Chippendale chase type of story that we get, and it kind of puts together why they're wearing these costumes, what they're how they're related to dinosaurs, and kind of brings that whole area together. Maybe the problem with that area is that we need that story slapping us in the face more so that we can understand why there's a carnival there. One of my favorite things about that whole area, and I've had this discussion with my wife even, is that you walk into that area and it's like, did they just drop all this stuff on an old parking lot? No, that's theming. That's exactly what they wanted you to think. So, they're doing exactly what you're falling for exactly what they wanted you to think. So, I do have some issues with the area, but there are a lot of things I do enjoy about it too. So, yeah, let's put in this new ride that kind of ties everything together, brings it all together, so that when you walk off of Dinosaur, you have an idea of what the story is.
Yeah, I think that's cool. Kind of, and your ideas are a little bit more doable because it's not kind of like let's start fresh, or it's not like let's make an entire land based around this one ride. Um, so I guess the next question would be, would you just dump in a ride right where all of the primeval world and all of the like the carnival area is? Like, would you just dump one ride there, or would you re-theme most of everything that's around there to something else?
Um, Depends on how much of the story we want to keep. You know, the whole Chester and Hester's history there, where they built up this carnival to keep the business going, type of thing. Um, yeah, it makes it kind of feel weird. And I don't know that it would fit with a Donald Duck type of story ride. So I could see using some of that space to build a better ride in there. I wouldn't go much further than that, though. The dig site, or the boneyard, I'm sorry, the boneyard, I think that's a great spot.
Mm-hmm.
When I had my 3.5-year-old there, she absolutely loved it. It was a great spot for her to burn some energy, because she's sitting in a stroller and transferring to a ride vehicle most of the day. She's not burning the energy like we are. So it's a good spot for us to sit, and she can run around and have some fun on her own too, that she makes herself. Um, so I don't want to get rid of that. I think that's a lot of fun right there. Uh, and I think you can build another ride that kind of ties the area together better.
And honestly, I've never been to Restaurantosaurus, mainly because of what people like you said, that it's skippable, like it's nothing too special. However, the storylines that you've been putting out sound awesome. Like that, those are some really cool little details, and that's all things that I would love to see. And maybe it's because places like Harambe, back in the African area of Animal Kingdom, is so detailed. You just walk in and you get it. You kind of understand. I'm in this rundown area of Africa. It's all kind of self-explanatory. And maybe that's what's lacking with Dino Land, is just having it be self-explanatory. Uh, you could really understand Dino Land if you go into all of these areas, and if you end up walking around the whole thing. But if you just kind of like walk through Dino Land, you just don't get it. It's kind of like, why is this a carnival? Why is this giant dinosaur here? I don't get it. So maybe it does need something. It does need to slap you in the face, where it's like, this is what we're going for. And I totally agree with you on that. Cool. So next we have some history for you guys, and our resident history buff, Brian, he's shaking his head right now. He loves that name. But Brian is going to go over some history for you guys today.
Yeah, so the park was kind of a a growth, I guess you could say, of the Jungle Cruise. Walt originally wanted real animals in his Jungle Cruise, and that just wasn't possible to do at that time, and create the type of attraction that the Jungle Cruise is. Um, so when Michael Eisner had come along, we could get into the history of Michael Eisner sometime, but because of some of the things they had done, him and Frank Wells, the company was kind of flush with cash at this point, and they needed to find ways to use it. So they came up with the Animal Kingdom idea. Joe Rohde had kind of been working on this project already, and so he had pitched some of these ideas, and they kind of gave it to him and said, all right, let's see what you got. And this was his big shot, and he hit it out of the park, in my opinion. So with Rohde and with Eisner, they used the Jungle Cruise idea, and they used those real life adventures and came up with this park that has lots of great stories in it. And then as part of it, Walt enjoyed conservation as well and wanted to bring some of that along. So Michael Eisner and Joe Rohde, they were able to bring that into the park. I saw an interview with Joe Rohde recently that one of the greatest things to have happened as a project he worked on is that it's also become much more than that project. It's building conservation, it's taking care of animals, it's, prolonging the lives of some of these animals. So having a park that's more than a park, that's doing more than just entertaining or edutaining, as we had talked about, I think that is a really nice feather in the cap of these guys that put the park together.
Yeah, and I've seen it's not a documentary, but it's videos of Joe Rohde going on a trip to Everest and kind of like going to Nepal and all this area. And what they would do is they would go there and actually buy items from native people who live in these areas and bring them back to Disney and actually use them as set pieces for these places. They brought in professional people from Africa to thatch roofs. All the roofs in Disney are thatched so well that it's raining all the time and they don't have any leaks because it was done so well. And it's just bringing people in to make everything as authentic as possible, and that's just a very Disney thing to do. And Joe Rohde was very instrumental into making stuff like that happen. I remember there's a video of him talking about Harambe and about how just like the power lines and everything, how chaotic everything is, and just talking about how they made that all look so real. I thought it was so cool, and he's so passionate about stuff like this, and he's he's just a really cool guy. I think he's somebody that I would love to kind of sit down and talk to about all the amazing Disney things that he was able to do in his life.
And is still doing.
Yeah.
I believe he has his hands in the Guardians of the Galaxy ride right now. But yeah, he's great. I'm so glad that they're kind of pushing him to the forefront right now, and that he is giving us as much information as he has been. It really helps us all know more about the park, and really makes the enjoyment of the park better.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And Michaela, how about you spouting the information there? Nice work. I don't know if I can keep that title of buff anymore.
I know some things, just some things though. You're definitely more into the history than I am, but I know some things. I know some Disney history. Cool. Well, that's all we got for you guys today. Today we went over Animal Kingdom as a park. We went over some planning tips for you guys. Make sure to walk around and kind of take everything in, and don't get too hot when you're at this park, because this park can definitely get pretty hot.
And Yak and Yeti, don't forget we talked about Yak and Yeti. And don't be afraid to try new things when you're at Disney because that stuff's going to be accessible.
And we went over our coping section today, which was a blue sky armchair Imagineer session of ours. And we have some differing opinions as to what Dinoland USA should be. So definitely think about that the next time you're walking through Dinoland. What would you do with Dinoland?
Yeah, and then we tried to cover some of the history of the park for you, give you an idea where it's come from and what they're trying to show to you. So remember, next week it'll be Mikhailo, history buff.
Oh no. I'm going to have to prepare for that one. Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it and see you real soon.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, please rate us on iTunes and subscribe. Email us at milesfrommainstreetpodcast@gmail.com with any thoughts, and visit us on Facebook under Miles from Main Street. We'll be bringing more to you weekly and look forward to talking to you then.
Until next week, remember,
Some live close,
but most of us don't.
so let's talk about it.